Have you ever heard a gunshot in complete silence through a wall of fog? This morning, before dawn even broke, a private shooting range on the Maine coast lay shrouded in mist. All you could hear was the gentle roar of the surf and the measured footsteps of early shooters. Among a dozen weekend warriors in tactical jackets with bulky kit, one figure stood apart, a woman in faded jeans, a plain gray jacket, and a baseball cap pulled so low you only caught a glimpse of her eyes. You could sense immediately she wasn't here to play. She walked to the farthest lane, carrying a long, mysterious case-like, the shell of some heavy weapon. Inside the small glass booth, Samuel Briggs, 22 years in the Navy, 10 years running, this ranger stared in disbelief. He could sort every shooter in seconds. Hunters zeroing rifles, competitive marksmen with custom gear, hobbyists pretending they were on the battlefield, but he'd never seen anyone move like her. A sharp whistle cut through the hush. Fire! Everything went silent again. She loaded her rifle calmly, then lined up a target hundreds of meters away. A soft cracker bullet flew like a bolt of lightning and struck dead center of the bull's eye. Without touching her scope, she shifted to a target twice as far and again hit it with chilling precision. You'd be sitting on the sidelines, heart pounding, thinking, "Is she Special Forces?" Samuel whispered to himself. Before you could even catch your breath, round after round tapped out on the steel plates, echoing in the stillness. Your eyes followed her every movement, trying to decode the secret behind her unremarkable disguise. Last shot, and that's a wrap. Samuel's voice echoed in your mind as she folded up her rifle, packed her gear, and turned to leave without a single word of explanation. Curious yet? Smash that like button and subscribe now. You won't want to miss the moment we finally unveil who this woman really is. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is in your city. Maybe, just maybe, you're the next partner she's looking for. Up next, the truth will explode. FBI, Navy brass, and top-secret defense files all come crashing into this tiny courtroom. Don't blink because the next chapter will leave you breathless. The moment her final shot rang out, the entire range seemed to freeze. In an instant, 2 flashlights flickered at the tree line and swept across her firing lane. 2 local officers, moving with deliberate caution, approached without a word of warning. "Ma'am, please show me your ID and weapons permit," the senior officer said, his tone calm but uncompromising. She paused and looked at them with serene composure. Without hesitation, she produced a plain credit card bearing no name and a small notebook filled with jotted coordinates. No passport, no permit, just those 2 items. The younger officers exchanged curious glances, wondering if this was some elaborate prank. With no choice, the senior officer clicked handcuffs onto her wrist. She offered no resistance, her calm acceptance unnerving them more than any struggle would have. They led her to the patrol car, passing the dew-damp targets as the headlights cast long shadows across the pavement. At the Stonehaven Sheriff's Officia, weathered building of mottled stone and aging shingles, the booking room awaited. The fingerprint scanner clicked steadily under her fingertips. The booking camera snapped its routine click. Name, address, hometown remained blank. She sat upright, her bright orange jumpsuit doing nothing to diminish the cold confidence in her gaze as she swept over the corners, the floor grate, the time-worn service door beside her. By morning, the 1880s-era courtroom hung heavy with lingering mist outside its leaded windows. 3 rookie officers sewn wide-eyed. Another tense stood at attention by the entrance. Judge Harmon frowned as she read the charge sheet, where unknown filled the defendant's name. The doors opened, and she entered, posture rigid, expression unreadable, as though expecting a moment already scripted. The air was thick, almost suffocating. Every rustle of paper, every sideways glance at her was like a drumbeat heralding a secret on the verge of revelation. She remained silent, yet her meticulous scan of camera placements, window frames, and escape routes spoke volumes. This was no ordinary arrest. She carried an invisible mission, and the courtroom sat stunned, arrested not for a crime, but for a purpose no one yet understood. The morning after a night of cryptic silence in the holding cell, all eyes turned to the Stonehaven courthouse. The benches reserved for townspeople are packed with curious faces. Above them sit Portland reporters clutching their cameras, and a row of sharply dressed local attorneys completes the solemn tableau. The heavy wooden doors crafted in 1887 swing open, and the woman steps in, still wearing her handcuffs and a blazing orange jumpsuit that dares every gaze. She chooses a seat in the very center of the courtroom, chin held high, her gaze icy and unflinching. Her defense attorney, a weary man with glasses, perched low on his nose flips impatiently through a stack of files and sighs. "Your Honor, we face serious challenges preparing a defense. My client refuses to provide any information, making it impossible to mount a case." His voice echoes through the hushed room, drawing anxious murmurs from the gallery. Before the judge can respond, an agent from Homeland Security strides in through a side door, clad in a sleek black suit. He bows slightly to the bench and solemnly requests, "Your Honor, based on the intelligence at our disposal, this case must be transferred to federal jurisdiction." No sooner are his words finished than two FBI agents appear at the far corner, their stony expressions underscoring their declaration, "We have reason to believe this matter poses a threat to national security." Judge Harmon, a silver-haired lady whose love of the law still shines in her eye, slaps her gavel 3 times. "This remains my courtroom. Before jurisdiction is decided, we will proceed with a preliminary hearing." The tension in the air is palpable as the prosecutor rises and announces clearly, "The defendant is charged with 3 counts: unlawful possession of a firearm, refusal to identify herself to law enforcement, and potential terrorist activity." Every gaze snaps to the woman. She doesn't move a muscle, her eyes staring down the courtroom as if daring the world to guess her true identity and the secrets she carries. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Is she a spy? Or just a cunning imposter? Filling the room with speculation. The defense attorney lowers his head to jot notes, while reporters pull out their phones to capture every moment. And just like that, the hearing launches into a power struggle between the local court, Homeland Security, and the FBI, centering on a silent woman who stands at the eye of a storm of unanswered questions. Just as tensions peaked in the courtroom, the heavy wooden doors swung open. Morning light spilled in around a solemn figure, a Navy admiral in full dress uniform, gold rank insignia gleaming on his shoulders. Instantly, the room fell silent. The veterans in the gallery snapped to attention. "Stand at ease. Render the salute." While Judge Eleanor Harmon straightened her robes and lifted her chin, the Admiral strode to the civilian counsel table and laid down a thick sealed envelope stamped "Top Secret, Department of Defense." With 2 sharp taps on the envelope's edge, he handed it to the judge. The entire courtroom held its breath as she carefully broke the seal and unfolded the pages. Inked in bold type across the header were the orders, "All charges against Commander Trent are hereby dismissed, effective immediately. This case has been classified and removed from public record." Judge Harmon's face paled, then regained composure as she rapped her gavel decisively. "By order of the Department of Defense, all charges against the defendant are dropped at once. This matter is now officially classified." As the gavel fell, the armed guards moved in and swiftly removed the handcuffs from her wrists. All eyes turned to the woman, no longer bound by orange restraints, but standing tall and composed. She inclined her head respectfully toward the Admiral. "Sir, I apologize for any inconvenience." The Admiral smiled, his voice calm yet authoritative. "On the contrary, Commander Trent, the United States Navy owes you an apology. Your rank and clearance were paramount to national security. Thank you for your service and discretion." At the sound of her correct title, Commander, every uniformed officer present, from bailiffs to federal agents, snapped to perfect attention. Even Judge Harmon, a former JAG officer herself, rose and offered a formal nod. "Thank you for your understanding, Your Honor," the Admiral added. "Commander Trent has been operating under classified orders." With that, the courtroom's hush gave way to quiet murmurs of awe and relief. All prior procedures, the shroud of silence, and the unanswered questions were replaced by unanimous respect for a singular officer whose true mission had been hidden from them all. The courtroom lights snapped back on, illuminating Isabel Trent's disciplined posture, shoulders squared, confident stride, and the unmistakable bearing of a naval officer. Behind her unassuming civilian attire lay a startling truth. She had served 12 years in the Navy's Special Warfare Development Group, leading countless covert operations, most notably Operation Silent Harbor, which thwarted a major terrorist plot against Norfolk's port facilities in 2018 without leaving a trace. As the judge announced, effective immediately, her charges are dropped, and she is hereby recognized as Commander of the United States Navy. The courtroom hierarchy shifted. Officials, from the presiding judge to FBI agents, snapped to attention and saluted, acknowledging a witness of national significance. The gavel fell, silencing all debate. Rank and classified orders took precedence. Few knew that, before joining the Navy, Trent had earned a master's in humanities, writing a thesis comparing Tacitus's philosophy of war with Sunday Tsusan, unexpectedly scholarly foundation for a special operator. Historians continue to debate whether small, clandestine units like the Navy SEALs drive the outcome of major conflicts or simply serve symbolic roles. The revelation of Commander Trent's service record has only intensified that debate. Now fully revealed, Trent stood tall in the courtroom, no longer the mysterious civilian but a decorated naval officer whose decisions once shaped global security. Her unmasking reminded everyone that her story was far bigger than a morning at a civilian shooting range or a puzzling arrest. Behind those scenes lay a world of strategy and discipline, where each choice could alter the fate of millions. Immediately after all the formalities ended and the courtroom lights dimmed, Rear Robert Isabel Trent emerged from the Stonehaven courthouse, her stride unmistakably that of a seasoned military officer. A government black SUV waited just outside, the setting sun casting a soft pink glow against the brick walls. The air was unusually still, as though awaiting the final movement of her story. Samuel Briggs, who had stood by her since her first moments at the range, stepped forward to return the rifle case. He spoke with measured respect. "Robert, here is your equipment. We've kept it secure throughout the investigation." His eyes reflected the deference owed to an old comrade, someone who had once served alongside him in Desert Storm. Trent inclined her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "Thank you, Samuel. Your professionalism has been critical to safeguarding our national security," she replied, her voice echoing lightly across the quiet courtyard. Every word was purposeful, leaving no syllable wasted. At the firing lanes, Samuel watched closely as the Rear Robert carefully unpacked the Mk-12 S-prone of the Navy's most prized long-range rifles. She methodically cleaned the barrel, applied lubricant with the precision of a special operations weapons technician, and protected each moving part against corrosion. Her movements were flawless, every gesture hitting its mark as if rehearsed. Once the rifle was assembled, Trent moved to the furthest lane, where the target stood 800 meters away in the mellow evening light. Without adjusting any sophisticated optics, she assumed her stance, took aim, and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out smooth yet powerful. The bullet struck dead center, marking a perfect final volley to an extraordinary day. Samuel bowed his head, noting in his logbook, "Final shot confirms rifle performance remains unimpaired." No applause followed. No words of praise, only the silent respect shared between two warriors who had weathered countless trials together. In that moment, the full story crystallized. The unassuming woman at the range did not merely wield a weapon, she carried her nation's trust in her unwavering commitment. Watching Rear Robert Trent quietly gather her gear and climb into the waiting vehicle, Samuel felt the profound weight of duty and dedication, qualities that endure, whatever the uniform or setting. Just weeks after the shooting range incident, Detective Owen Parker was sitting in his Stonehaven office, reviewing case files when the phone rang. "Parker here," he answered. On the other end, a formal voice said, "Detective Parker, this is Robert Hastings. Commander Trent will receive a commendation in Norfolk next week. We'd be honored if you would attend the closed ceremony. It's a rare opportunity to gain full understanding of her role." Parker froze. Only days earlier, he'd been the one interrogating that calm suspect at the border station. Now, he was being invited into a classified gathering, among medals and pristine uniforms. The night before his departure, he barely slept, wondering whether he'd see the whole truth or merely a carefully arranged fragment. At Naval Station, Norfolk, solemnity reigned. The hall held only a few dozen senior officials, Robert Hastings, generals, CIA and FBI representatives, and some NCIS officers. Leather chairs gleamed under the warm lights. When Commander Trent stepped up to the honor podium, every seat shifted to face her. In her crisp white service coat, her rank insignia sharp, she bowed her head and spoke in a clear yet resolute voice. "Thank you to the Navy and my teammates. This recognition belongs to all of us." Robert Hastings then addressed the room. "Today, we honor one of the Navy's premier counterterrorism experts, someone who directly neutralized 16 threats against eastern seaboard ports during Operation Silent Harbor. Her courage, discretion, and determination saved thousands of lives." The applause that followed illuminated Commander Trent's face and reflected in every witness's eyes. Parker sat toward the back, absorbing every moment. In that instant, the image of the silent woman at the shooting range vanished completely. In her place stood a disciplined, revered figure. He realized that her earlier silence had not been the muteness of a criminal, but the calculated reserve of a professional warrior protecting countless lives. After the commendation, an NCIS officer approached Parker and handed him a badge reading, "NCIS, Special Agent." "We need you on our team," the officer said quietly. Detective Parker smiled, accepted the badge, and replied, "It would be my honor, sir." Stepping out of the hall into the late afternoon sun, light streaked across the polished wooden floor. For Parker, a new chapter had begun from local detective to NCIS Special Agent, joining those who always operate in the shadows to defend the nation. The moment Parker held his NCIS badge, he knew he had stepped into another world. After 13 years with the Stonehaven Police Department marking lanes, chasing criminals, enduring tense courtroom battle, she was now the bridge between local law enforcement and the Navy's special operations, a position both novel and weighty. Early that week, Parker drove the familiar coastal road, but this time, he wasn't heading to the precinct. He pulled up at a small house near the harbor to collect his new secure phone. Before he could learn its interface, a message from an unknown number flashed on the screen. "Welcome aboard. Some of us are always around." Those simple words carried a profound reminder. In the hidden realm of national security, the quietest guardians are often the most vital. At 8 a.m., Parker joined his first virtual briefing on Project Silent Harbor, the specialized unit tasked with detecting, assessing, and coordinating the capture of serious threats along the eastern seaboard. He sat before an electronic map, watching red dots flicker, a cargo vessel anchored offshore, a suspicious truck leaving the docks after dark. Parker's role had expanded far beyond tracking local criminals. Now he gathered intelligence, verified potential dangers, and liaised with Navy Special Operations to plan arrests. Every report he sent went straight to the command center, where Rear Robert Trent and her elite team awaited orders. During his afternoon patrol, Parker walked along the shoreline as the late-day sun glittered on the waves. With a radio in hand, he scanned for unusual activity, any strange vessel, any unmarked truck-loading containers. Each time he pressed report, he knew he was helping protect thousands of lives, from fishermen and dock workers to coastal residents who believed they were safe. As night fell, Parker recalled the silent shooting range at Stonehaven, ISE. He remembered Rear Robert Trent's steady gaze. "You showed integrity, even when you had doubts. That's the quality we need." A small smile crossed his face. In the unseen world of national defense, a watchful observer like him, always alert, always honest, was an indispensable part of the security barrier that kept their country safe. Shortly after settling into his NCIS role, Parker could not shake the memory of the seaside shooting range where it all began. One idle afternoon before heading out on patrol, Samuel Briggs, the old range supervisor, called him on the secret number Robert Trent had given him. "I've got an outstanding candidate here who needs assessment." A few days later, Samuel spotted a young woman arriving at dusk. Dressed in plain civilian clothes, she carried an unfamiliar custom rifle. At the farthest firing lane, she adopted a steady stance, breathed deeply, and squeezed off a shot at a target over 500 meters away. Without consulting any wind gauge or ballistic calculator, she simply watched the swaying grass and fired, and the bullet struck dead center. Samuel stood frozen. No beginner's luck could explain that level of natural precision. This was the hallmark of a true special operations marksman. That night, Samuel dialed the unlisted number again. "I've just witnessed a shooter as skilled as Commander Trent." The voice on the other end paused, then replied calmly, "Reserve lanes for her tomorrow morning. We need another look." The next dawn, the young woman returned accompanied by a middle-aged man in a khaki blazer, his posture rigid with authority. They introduced themselves plainly, "We're here for a special operations evaluation." While the man quickly exchanged credentials, the woman quietly sized up Samuel's every movement, measuring whether he could be trusted. Samuel then set up a rigorous test. Moving targets, crosswinds, variable cover simulated real-world scenarios. Each of her shots landed flawlessly. Beyond marksmanship, she disassembled and reassembled her rifle within seconds, switching to a different caliber in record time, skills no civilian archive taught. When the trial concluded, the older man handed Samuel a heavy envelope. Inside, nestled beneath a crisp business card stamped with the Naval Special Warfare insignia, was a brief note. "Thank you for your vital assistance." Samuel also found a small commendation certificate reading, "Outstanding Observer." From that day on, Samuel was no longer merely the range's caretaker, he had become a trusted evaluator in the Special Warfare recruitment pipeline. And the mysterious young shooter, with her silent, deadly precision, was well on her way to joining the secretive ranks once occupied by Commander Trent NDA. Moments after evaluating the young woman, Samuel returned to his small office at the range and discovered an unmarked envelope on his desk. Inside, he found a high-end thermal scope and an encrypted communications module gear. Any amateur shooter would envy alongside a single blank piece of paper, its significance clear without a word. For the first time, Samuel realized this range was more than a civilian shooting venue. From unexplained arrests and surprise court cases to discovering precision marksmen, this place had quietly become a nexus for spotting and recruiting elite shooters in service of national security. Each morning at dawn over coastal Maine, Samuel no longer merely tidied target stands or inspected ammunition. He powered up the encrypted module to receive discreet messages from his Navy contacts. The thermal scope let him detect the faintest movements of a shooter, even through the thickest fog. Time and again, Samuel observed people who looked ordinary firefighters, school teachers, Dr. Snail, impossible shots at 700 meters, their brains and bodies moving with the fluid precision of special operators. Instead of gaping or drawing attention, Samuel would simply nod, impressed, then quietly file his report. He understood his role was top secret: identify, verify, and notify. The more he worked with the new equipment, the more he appreciated Rear Robert Trent's words, "Some serve in plain sight, but others protect us in silence." Indeed, there were individuals out there safeguarding the nation without fanfare or headlines. The range had transformed into a hidden transfer station for sharpshooter synonymous talents tested here, then quietly flagged for recruitment. Whenever someone posted a perfect score that defied expectations, Samuel needed only a brief coded call, and agents would arrive. As the sun set across the target lines, Samuel allowed himself a small smile. This range would never truly sleep. All around him, silent figures stood ready to step forward when the country called. "They're always among us," he mused. "We just don't notice." With his new gear at hand, Samuel knew his mission more clearly than ever: to watch, to learn, and to keep this invisible network alive. This story teaches us the importance of vigilance and personal responsibility, reminding us never to underestimate what unfolds right before our eyes. Every small action, a glance, a phone call can become a critical link in the security chain. The message here is that anyone can be a silent guardian, as long as they remain perceptive to subtle clues. What about you? What do you think of this story? Have you ever encountered similar moments in your own life? Or do you have thoughts on the crime we've discussed? Share your predictions. When do you believe this menace will finally end? I'm eager to read your personal viewpoints and insights in the comments below.